Hello, BookTube. I have a bunch of Tuesday stuff I want to talk to you about that's sort of miscellaneous. Figured do this rather than make a bunch of videos since you have plenty to watch from me. The first thing is to make a bit of an apology for Poetry Tuesday. Quite a few of you have called for the return of Poetry Tuesday, where we read usually contemporary poetry from a slim volume of poetry and then talk about it in an attempt to, on my part anyway, to learn more about contemporary poetry and maybe dislike it a little bit less. And that has proven true. That back when we were doing Poetry Tuesday regularly with contemporary poetry, I was enjoying not only the reading of the poems, but also a lot of the discussion that was cropping up in the comments field. I kind of sort of hoped that I would do Poetry Tuesday for today, but the book that I had in mind was this, Sometimes I Never Suffered, by Shane McCrae. Which I just got in the mail from Frost, Rush, and Giroux. This is an author who's had 7 poetry publications before now, and has won awards and whatnot. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to get back into Poetry Tuesday with contemporary poetry. I had a little twinge of reservation because the title is nonsensical. Sometimes is qualifying and never is categorical. So sometimes I never suffered is. I thought, okay, poetic license and whatnot. We'll let it go at that. But then I read the book, and there's no way that I could have a productive Poetry Tuesday conversation about these poems because they pretty much embody all the stuff that I hate about certain parts of contemporary poetry: the willful obscurity, the if you ask me real nice and I have the time, I might explain this to you, but there's no way you will understand it if I don't. The kind of, exclusionary club, cantab lounge basement read along where if you're an acolyte of the poet, then you might feel like you're in the in crowd, but that it's not for anybody. There's an example that I can give you, just a brief one. It won't be an analytical because that's gonna have to wait. This is a poem called "Jim Limber Describes His Arrival in Heaven." Jim Limber is a character who recurs throughout this book, and I guess maybe occurs in earlier books. The author has an initial explanation at the beginning of this book that is just ought to strike terror in the heart of any prospective reader. It's pretty much a keep out sign. The preface of the book is, "Sometimes I Never Suffered" concludes, quote, "a fire in every world," quote, close quote, a poem begun with, quote, "purgatory / a son and a father of sons," close quote, from In the Language of My Captor, and continued in, quote, "the hell poem from The Gilded Auction Block." The whole of "Sometimes I Never Suffered" is the third part of this poem, but as is the case with the other 2 parts, it can be read on its own. I didn't read that. I didn't know that when I skipped all that preparatory material and just started reading these poems, but good Lord. So what was that again? So this is the third part of an ongoing poem that you somehow didn't do in one book? And Jim Limber is a character that I think appears in all 3 of those parts. He's a mixed-race son of Confederate President Jefferson Davis, and part of this book follows his adventures on Earth and beyond. And there's a poem here, "Jim Limber Describes His Arrival in Heaven," that is, I'll just read it to you, and it'll go as a way of explaining why Poetry Tuesday is going to have to wait. "What was it like? It wasn't like the candle." Now, keep in mind, I am not reading that like that in order to be a brat. The first line has no punctuation. The poems in this book, in fact, have no punctuation. I don't know if you can make that out, but there isn't even one of these performative little spaces on the first line. It's just one line of prose. If it's just one line of prose and it has no punctuation, that's how you read it. You wait for the punctuation to know where your intonation should fall. And if the poet doesn't know that or doesn't care, if he's making up his own rules to replace the ones that have been in place for 800 years, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell him about me as a reader. Anyway, I can't read it in the way that he intends it because I don't know him. And if I have to know him to understand this, then what is this? Anyway, "What was it like? It wasn't like the candle went out in my..." Then there's a long space, so I'm going to give it a pause. "Bedroom, and next I found myself in the sun outside. I felt myself, my body." More so much I couldn't tell for sure if it was mine. I thought I was chasing a big dog through the tallest grass I'd ever seen, grass taller than the tall grass me and Mama hid from in the master inn the night before the morning Mrs. Davis took me away. And somehow that dog stayed just an inch or two ahead. I was already dead, and I had been dead some time. Then all at once I saw the grass was giant wings. It was angels' wings whipping my hands and face. That's how it's done. I won't say punctuated because there's no punctuation, but there are those ostentatious spaces between words. I know this is going to raise hackles. Probably it would raise hackles in the author on the author's part, but at random intervals. Just because I don't like contemporary poetry doesn't mean I haven't been reading poetry for 3 times longer than this author has been alive. And it doesn't mean just because this is a contemporary poet who's decided to abandon punctuation, to abandon anything like normal conversational rhythm, to add in random spaces, just because that's true doesn't mean I have to check my critical faculties at the door. Those spaces are random. They don't reinforce any idea in the poem. And the decision to write this thing in a run-on sentence with no punctuation leads to misreadings. Now, I am sure that at the 92nd Street Y, the author is going to say that leading readers into misreadings was part of his plan, that is part of the artistic goal of this kind of poetry. Well, if so, then I don't know what to tell you. Certainly you lose me as a reader. And I looked through Sometimes I Never Suffered to see if there was even, I ordinarily wouldn't do this, I would ordinarily pick at random, but in this book I looked through to see if there was even one poem that I could maybe read, one poem where I didn't need to know the author to know how to read the poem, and there wasn't one that I could find. So the problem with Poetry Tuesday is that I didn't come up with a backup plan, even an older poem. I'm sure that you people wouldn't really mind if I read you some John Greenleaf Whittier and then talked about it, but I didn't come up with any alternative. I didn't come up with a plan B. So Poetry Tuesday is going to have to wait until next Tuesday. I'm hoping that I can find or get in the mail a piece of contemporary poetry, a book of contemporary poetry like this, only that isn't so self-consciously, very intentionally alienating to any kind of reader who doesn't know the author. Yeah, that's the sort of thing he does. Yeah, you have to know how he talks. You've never been to the Camtab Lounge? Well, I can't really help you. Maybe you haven't been to the Camtab Lounge because you're a racist. if the readers of these poems are going to come away and say, well, yeah, that's how he talks. Well, I don't know that, and I shouldn't have to know that. So, I have to sort of pass on this book because what would be the point of going at it in any great length? So Poetry Tuesday is going to have to wait until next week. That's one announcement. Another announcement is a little mail, because I have a book package right here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is right here, of course. It is right at my elbow, but it's not a book package. It's this Royal Shakespeare Company collected Shakespeare that one of you sent me. Whoever you are, whoever did that good deed for your day, if you sent me a collected Shakespeare wondering if it would hit the mark, or if maybe I would give you a tongue lashing for not only sending me a book, but sending me a book you know I already have, right there is a collected Shakespeare. It's not like it's a mystery. It's in every video, and there are 2 other collected Shakespeares in Hyde Cottage, but there's one that's on camera in every video, so you know for sure that I already have this. So maybe one of you did this and thought, oh God, I'm gonna catch hell. I love the way it looks. I want to send it to him, but I'm gonna catch hell. Well, in this particular case, that's not going to happen because I can barely stand to let go of this to take Frida on a walk. But that's not the book package. We do have a book package, so we'll go through. I don't think there's going to be anything else. It's a boiling hot day today. Boiling hot. 95, 96, 98 degrees by the time the day is over. There was supposed to be raucous thunderstorms and downpours today. That is not going to happen. Not a drop of rain is going to fall anywhere in Greater Boston, and the temperature isn't going to alleviate because of that. In other words, it's going to be in the 90s Fahrenheit tonight, all night long. At 2 in the morning, it will be 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't see this alleviating anytime soon. There is a kind of weak front that will probably bring a kind of relief by Friday, but it's Tuesday. And every weather forecast yesterday and this morning was saying, yeah, relief is on the way. By Tuesday night, relief will be firmly in place. By Wednesday, no. It's going to be almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit today in Boston, and tomorrow is going to be almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And I would suggest probably that Thursday will be as well. I don't see any relief coming anytime soon, so it's a boiling hot day. And as usual, this is causing conflict here at Hyde Cottage, because my little bean, hey, the heat just destroys her. It just destroys her. Worse even than it did my old Basset Hound Lucy. Lucy was not built for the heat at all, and didn't like it at all, and tended to suffer a bit, especially when she started to get a little older. Frida is poleaxed by the heat, just poleaxed by it, and doesn't acknowledge that. She doesn't acknowledge it at all. She wants to go tearing around, screaming at dogs 10 times her size. So I have to tell her, no, I love this weather, but even I have sense enough not to go walking around in it. So what have we got here? Oh, okay, this is from FSG. Fantastic. All right, this comes out, do we have a date on here? This comes out early September, and that could be the date. That date might work. And this author, talk about a good balance at the bank. Boy, oh boy, this author has a good balance at the bank, fiction and nonfiction. This is Roberto Saviano. This is his new book, Savage Kiss. He's the author of Piranhas and Gomorrah, a nonfiction work about Italian gangs and a fiction work about Italian gangs, and this is his new book, translated by Anthony Sugar. Nice to have the translator's name nice and prominent on the cover. That's rather nice. That's a good thing. That ought to be true for all translated literature, because we're all on this planet together, right? And most people in America are monoglot, so they need a translator to experience stuff like this. I can't wait, though. This author has done 2 books that I have loved. Let's see here. He's one of contemporary Europe's bravest voices. I guess that is a reference to his first book was a work of nonfiction about organized crime, and there was a lot of speculation that he would just be murdered. So maybe that's the bravery involved. Although I thought there were parts of Piranhas, his novel, that were very brave for other reasons. Saviano famously published his explosive 2006 debut Gomorrah, which unveiled the inner workings of the Neapolitan organized crime while still in his 20s. And now has lived for more than a third of his life with some level of police protection. Oh my, I didn't know that. That's terrible. Gomorrah, of course, has also found a whole new audience through the hit TV series of the same name, and a television adaptation of Saviano's second book, 000, premiered on Amazon a little earlier this year. In recent years, Saviano has been an outspoken champion for the rights of migrants, publicly sparring with Italy's populist former Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini. In 2019, Saviano faced threats of jail time on charges of libel against the then Deputy Prime Minister. Even now, Saviano has been using his platform to shine a light on the mafia's efforts to gain influence in Italy that was hard hit by the pandemic. 2 years ago, FSG published Saviano's gritty crime novel, The Piranhas, which I unboxed on this channel a few times and really liked, really recommended. The first of 2 books about an ambitious teenager who rises to the upper echelons of the Neapolitan underworld, and inspired by the real-life trend of, quote, baby gangs in Naples. Now we are very excited to announce the American publication of the conclusion to that story, Savage Kiss, which will be released in hardcover on September 8th, beautifully translated from the Italian by Anthony Sugar. I don't know about the translation yet because I haven't read the book, but Anthony Sugar has done a lot of first-rate translation work, so I'm not really doubting it all that much. This is just a general package where I'm going in with my flag high, and it would be up to the book and the translator to disappoint me. I don't think that's going to happen. The Piranhas and Savage Kiss tell the story of Nicholas Fiorillo, a calculating, vicious teen who takes his group of friends and turns them into a fully functioning gang. The first book brought readers to the tale of Nicola's rise as he and his cohort muscled in on the illegal drug action in their hometown of Naples, and concluded with a tragic bang as one of Nicola's rivals struck out at a member of his own family. A Savage Kiss as this book begins, he is still at the peak of his power, but must now contend with a whole host of challenges, including rival gangs, the paranoia that one of his own friends may turn against him, and the city's criminal old guard, which has become resentful of his ascent. Fantastic. Can't wait. And this has a bunch of blurbs for Gomorrah and the Piranhas. Who do we have for the Piranhas? Elena Ferrante blurbed it. Kirkus Review loved it. Carolyn Moorhead loved it in the TLS. John Hooper in the New York Times Book Review. And Gabino Iglesias, the author of Criminal Element, also loved it. So Piranha's had a lot. Piranha's already out in paperback, I believe, with lots of blurbs on it that I must have somewhere. I'll probably reread it before I read this. But that's great, fantastic. All right, so we only have one book in today's mail, as far as I know. Unless more mail comes, we only have one book. But what a book! what a treat this will be. It's excuse me, it's early September, so I probably won't do it right away. This won't be one of those times like this thing, where I just pop it onto the TBR and read it that night. I probably won't do that. I have a lot of other stuff to read between now and then, but I'm looking forward to it very much. And then the third part of this little catch-all video, this little miscellaneous Tuesday thing, because none of these things were enough for one video. The third part was a tech update. What would this channel be without tedious tech updates? Just the other day, just yesterday, I got an Amazon Fire 10, a 10-inch Amazon Fire in the mail, a 10-inch tablet in the mail. I showed it to you. It had a nice navy blue cover, and I bemoaned the fact that it was a pretty cover because I was never going to see it again, because I ordered all the accoutrements for it as well. The reason why I was interested in Amazon Kindle to replace my 8-inch Kindle, the reason why I'm interested in these things is because they're expandable. They have this micro SD slot that allows you to expand the memory, which is great. And I usually don't take advantage of that. With this new Kindle Fire, this 10-inch, I decided to take advantage of this stuff all at once. Just bite the bullet. In a year, you're not going to remember the expense of any of it. So I bought the device. And I bought a 512 gig micro SD card, which is the biggest size that the device supports. It's an enormous amount of space, enormous, 5 times the space on my phone, which I bought specifically for a huge amount of space. So I'm figuring I'm not gonna butt my head against the ceiling of that storage anytime soon. So I bought that, and I bought an elaborate armored case for it, something with a handle, rubber edges, a screen protector, a frame, a plastic frame. Just because I like the feel of an elaborately protected device. That's why I was wailing about the blue color, because I'm never going to see it again once the protection goes on. And I wanted to show you sort of a follow-up as to what I did with that Kindle Fire, which I naturally started calling Big Blue. I did all of the things that I said that I would do. The first thing that I did was to install the Google Play Store. Because Amazon Kindle, the Kindle Fires come with an Android skin to it that is Amazon centered, in order for them, I would imagine, to keep the price down. This thing was $100. It's not a small amount of money in today's economy, in the Great Depression, the Trump Depression, but it isn't anywhere near what you would pay for an iPad, for instance. And one of the ways that Amazon keeps that price down is to contract Amazon App Store exclusive apps and run them on the skin that comes on this device. But it is fairly easy to add the Google Play Store to this device. It would also correspondingly be fairly easy for Amazon to stop it from happening, but they haven't done that. They must know that it adds a back-end kind of value to this device, and that maybe their advertisers are placated anyway. But the first thing I did was do that. Let me see if I can show you. Yes. The first thing I did, here is the new device. The first thing I did was to install the Google Play Store, which is not hard to do. Even if you're not technically inclined, it's not hard to do. First thing you want to do is make sure that the target Kindle does not have a micro SD card already in it. If you have a micro SD card in that slot, take it out for this process. And then just go to YouTube and type in Google Play on Kindle Fire. And once the results come up, make sure that you're looking at something from 2020. I'll leave a link to the video that I used, but there are plenty, I'm sure, that'll like it. And what those videos will do is leave a link. In the particular video that I use shows you what to do, but it also leaves you a link to a blog post that leaves hot links that take you exactly where you need to go. There is no hunting around. There is no technical skill required. All you have to do is follow the procedure in the way that it's laid out. So you figure out which Kindle you have. In this case, it's a 2019 Kindle 10 Fire, a Fire 10-inch tablet. That's going to be the latest. Is always going to be one of the top ones on the list of available devices. You follow those links. First step, There are 4 things that you have to download to your device. And the final one is the Google Play Store. First you have to download 3 apps that make the 4th app possible. Don't really have to know what they are. You just have to do it in the right sequence, and you have to make sure that it's done right. So you click on the first link. It will take you to a page with a list of possible Kindle devices. Pick the one that's yours. So make a point ahead of time of going to your settings and learning which device you have if you somehow don't remember that. Pick the device that's yours and just click on that link right here on the device. Just click on that link. It will take you to a download. Now, the download pages are a little bit on the tricky side because they clearly want to distract you. There will be all sorts of boxes that are, in fact, advertisements, but that have big buttons on them that look like you want to hit them. So don't go hitting buttons right away. Instead, look to make sure. Usually it's at the bottom right-hand side that is the actual bar that hits the download, as opposed to an advertisement of some kind or other. Those will waste your time and can even void the process. So you want to be careful. There'll be a little icon at the top of the box that sort of shows you that it's not the actual download. The actual download button won't have any icons of it. It won't have any sigils on it at all to indicate that it's anything other than the actual download. You hit the actual download, usually on the bottom right-hand side, but I can't guarantee that. And it will take you to the download. You want to accept the download, wait for it to happen, and then once it's happened, tap on it and install it. So you have to do all of those processes. You can't just hit it and then move on. You have to wait and make sure that it works. Make sure that you have installed it. And then go up to the top. It'll be saved in your tabs up at the top there. Go to the original page, the original blog page, scroll down to the second part. Tap on the link, go to the version of the app that fits the version of the Kindle that you have, and go through the same process. Hit the download, accept it, install it, wait for it to be done, wait for it to say done, and then hit done. And then go up to the top to your tab again, go back to that page, do the third one, and just go through the same process, making sure that you don't hit anything that's an advertisement, making sure that you don't get distracted. Just hit the thing you're looking for. It'll make itself clear. It's usually the only red thing, but even if the colors are different on your tablet, it will make itself clear. You just have to take a minute to carefully look at what it is. And then once you've done all 3 of those, remembering always to accept the download, install the download, wait for it to happen. Some of them take longer than others depending on your Wi-Fi speed. And also the last 2, the third of the preparatory apps and the Google Play Store itself, are large things. They're going to take a little bit of time to download. Once you've done the first 3, then you go back up to the tab where you have the original page. You scroll down to the last thing, install the Google Play Store, hit that, and just wait. Accept it, download it, and then just wait patiently. And when it is done, you will have the Google Play Store on your Amazon Kindle Fire, and that increases the functionality enormously, just enormously. Now, looking around online, I have not yet found a way to get rid of the bloatware that comes on this thing originally out of the box. You can't, for instance, even though you're not going to use the Amazon App Store, you can't, as far as I can tell, get rid of it. And the same is true of all of these others. When you look at this homepage, all of those apps I downloaded through the Google Play Store. Most of them are not available. You've got NetGalley, you've got Gmail. This weather thing keeps recurring. I haven't found a way to discourage it, but you've got the Nook app, a weather app. You've got the Kindle app. You've got Google Docs and the real YouTube app, Instagram, and all that sort of Voxer. All that sort of stuff's not available in the Amazon App Store at all. And all of those apps I downloaded from the Amazon App Store. But in addition to them, look what I have. Right up there on the top right. 2 whole files of bloatware. Not one, because if you hold on an item, let's see if we can do this. The tech channels make it look easy. If you hold on an item, you can move it around, right? And when you hold on that item, you can move it up to one of those folders and just put it in there. But it'll only go in there if there's room. And the first one here all the way to the right is full. If I tried to do that to that one all the way up on the right, it wouldn't work. It would have just bounced back because there's no more room in there. There's room in this one, and I can't put this one inside that one. That's how much bloatware there is. Look what's in here. Tips, a calculator, a analog clock, a whole bunch of other crap that I'm never going to use, but I haven't yet found a way to get rid of them, to get them off this device. There's got to be a way. If there's a way to install the Google Play Store, there's a way to get those off here. It might be a little harder, and Amazon might be a little more vigilant about making sure that they shut it down whenever it pops up, because that does affect their advertisers. Their advertisers are hoping that even if you don't use these apps, they'll be right in front of your face all the time, whereas if they know that you can get rid of them. There's got to be a way to do it. I'll figure it out. Or rather, I won't figure it out, but I'll find somebody online who has come up with a way that looks like it will work for me. I don't want to have to go digging around on third-party apps. I don't want to have to download anything. I want a process that's just as simple as installing the Google Play Store. And I'm sure that such a process exists. Somebody's thought of it somewhere. But anyway, the first thing I did on this thing, on Big Blue, was to install the Google Play Store. And once the Google Play Store was installed, this was last night that I did this, I then spent half an hour downloading the apps that I use and love and need. Google Docs, Google itself, a couple of weather apps, my Radar app, the Weather Channel app, Twitter, Instagram, Voxer, for those of you who don't Voxer me. I love to Voxer. And a whole bunch of other, the Nook app, a huge number of my books go to the Nook app because that opens EPUB, whereas the Kindle app does not. Just the basics. I know that more tech-savvy people would have a whole page of these things, but I just needed the basics. But none of the basics are available in the Google app, in the Google App Store. So I had to get the Google Play Store to start with. And also the Google Play Store gives you an infinitely greater amount of choice, so that it's not just those basics. Any app that I come across that I want to have, like for instance the Open Letters app. Open Letters Review has an app that's free, and it is a perfect way to carry around Steve in your pocket 24 hours a day. You can take Steve to bed with you at night, because that is where Open Letters Review, for those of you who maybe don't know or are new to the channel, is an online literary journal where I'm one of the editors and where a lot of my reviews appear. I haven't downloaded Open Letters Review for this yet because I sort of write for it, but I will do that. But the nice thing about Google Play is that even other apps, any app that I come across that I might want to try, can just go on here. Like for instance, eBay is not on here, but I might want to put it on there. And I can almost guarantee that eBay is not in the Amazon App Store, not in its real form. Some knockoff form, Schmeebay, might be in there. But with the Google Play Store, you don't have to worry. It's the biggest app store in the world. So I'm sure that it would be there. So that was the first thing that I did. That, and also clean up the home page. I can't quite get rid of these things, but I could. They were filling the whole page. At least I was able to put them into folders, 2 folders that I'm never going to touch, that I don't want on my home page, that I'm never going to use, I'd like to delete. That was the first thing that I did. And then the second thing that I did, unfortunately, was to install this cover. This is a Fintai cover that comes in 2 pieces. So first you put the frame, you snap the frame onto the device itself, and the frame is this plastic frame all the way around on the inside, and also a screen protector. And then once you have that snapped onto the device, you then snap the device into this part of it, the rubber boarded part that has the rubber guards for all of the ports, and has this ring handle that is rotatable and positionable, so that it doesn't have to be sticking out at all. You things like that. This is great boon to me. It's a great boon to me. I can position it on a pillow if I'm watching Netflix or Amazon Prime, and I can also hold it in a much more useful way than gripping the side of the tablet. Even with armor, gripping the side of the tablet is a little bit annoying, but with a handle, it's just fine. That was the first thing I did, and the reason I say unfortunately is not because this isn't a good device. I'm actually kind of liking this armor casing, but because one defect of the Fintai armor casing here is that it doesn't have a cutout for the micro SD card. So once I had installed this, I then had to take it off to put the micro SD card in. I did that, put the micro SD card in here. It originally looked like it wasn't going to work. It didn't. It originally looked like it wasn't going to go in all the way. Every time I'd push it in, it'd bounce back out again. You could still close the little latch over it, but the latch was the only thing keeping it down, and that wasn't making a legitimate connection. But because we live in the 21st century, and because every problem has been addressed online somewhere, instead of losing my cool and getting furious, as I would have done 15 years ago, with a piece of technology balking my will, instead all I did was smile, go on YouTube, and simply type in, my micro SD card doesn't go in all the way. As simple as that. Anything like that. Any problem that you have. I simply type that in. Immediately got a ton of responses. And the first response, the guy said, yeah, I had the exact same problem. You just take your keys, take one key, and just force the thing in. It's not that it's not fitting. It's that it needs more force than your finger can apply. Just force it in until you hear it click. I took a key and did that, and it worked just fine. Then I closed the latch, and then I put all the protective gear back on. So now Big Blue is an armor-protected thing. I could throw this on the floor, and it wouldn't hurt it. A fully Android device, because I'm no longer tethered to the Amazon skin that was on this, and with 500 gigs of storage. So that anything that I get, any ebooks that any of you are kind enough to send me, anything that I download, anything I get from publishers, I can just hit download. I don't have to worry about storage. There's no way in the world that I'm going to fill this up anytime soon. So, a little update for you. Big Blue is now all 3 of the things that I needed to do to conform this thing to what I want to use it for have all been safely done. It took an hour to do all 3 of them last night. I installed the Google Play Store, cleaned up the as much as I can, the bloatware. That's the one thing I still need to do, is get that bloatware off this device. Because it's not just that I'm never going to use those things, it's that they're taking up memory, they're taking up space. And I'm never going to use a calculator. I'm never going to use a tip sheet. I'd love to get rid of Alexa. This comes with Alexa, and it comes with a hands-free mode, so that this can be sort of a dot, an Echo Dot that's right there in your house that is always listening, and you can just call out for anything that you want. Those things are deadly, and you shouldn't have one in your house. If you do, you should throw it out. And the reason why you shouldn't just disable it, but you should throw it away, is the same reason why I would like to delete Alexa from this machine, which is that even when you turn it off, it's still listening. I disabled Alexa right away. In fact, I went through my settings and disabled all of that. Disable your location services. Disable them all. If possible, get rid of them. Disable anything that seems to need a location device. So there's, for instance, on this device, I don't know if we can find it. On this device, there is, in addition to the files that I uploaded, there's also, on this device, there's a native weather app. And it needs your location. Obviously, it does. And it's not, if it's not asking for your location, that's because somehow or other it already knows your location. So you have to go into that device, you have to go into that in-house app and disable it. You can't just say, well, I'm never going to use it, so it's never going to know where I am. You have to disable it, because it already does know where you are. And I went through all of my apps, almost all of them, the Weather Channel, the Radar app, most of the others, Voxer, Twitter, and whatnot. They all just routinely, in their setup mode, ask you for your location. Deny it. Deny it completely. And if you're not allowed to deny it, delete the app. And once you've deleted the app, go to your delete tray and make sure to delete it again. Make sure it's gone from your device. Because these things... not to make Amazon sound evil, but these things exist to harvest your data. And if there's one lesson that online life in the 21st century has to teach us all, if there's one lesson we all have to learn, it's that our data is currency. You shouldn't be giving it away at all. So if you click on a YouTube video that you want to watch and the ad is a survey, a so-called survey, take this survey and this will disappear immediately, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't even give it a false answer. Don't give it any answer at all. You giving it an answer, even a false answer, tells the aggregators of that data when you're using your device. If you haven't disabled your location services, it tells them where you're using your device. Even if you don't tell it what your preference is for which movie or which app you've recently downloaded, don't give any information to anything if you can help it. Your information is your currency. It belongs to you. You should be able to say what is done with it and who gets to see it. So if you see an ad, if you click on for instance, a YouTube ad, a BookTube video, and it has one of those stupid surveys, it's no coincidence that the wait for that app to disappear, for that ad to simply disappear, is very long. It is there intentionally. It's long, designed to make you lose patience and simply engage with it. Don't do it. Back out of the video. Usually, if you back out of the video, you just say, no thanks, I don't want to watch the video anymore. I'm not going to take the survey. Usually, if you do that, if you go right back to the video, there won't be anything like that. There won't be any survey at all. There won't be any ad of any kind. You'll just go straight to the video. But even if it doesn't do that, don't watch the video. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to give your data. It might seem small. It might seem like, well, I've been doing this for years. I've never safeguarded my data before. How bad can it be? Better to get into the habit. It can be really bad. You would be astonished to learn what these people know about you. And they shouldn't. Your data is yours. It's not theirs. It's not something to be harvested. So I took a while when I was setting this up, in addition to getting all the apps that I use and corralling all of the apps that I don't use, I also made sure to go through the settings on this device everywhere. Turn off all the notifications. Turn off all the notifications, because the notifications know when you answer them. They know when you see them. That's data watching you. Turn off, of course, all the voice-activated stuff, because in order for something to be voice-activated, it has to be listening. So it's not just Alexa. It's also, for instance, this. If you dig down deep in the preferences for this device, there's an option for dictation, where instead of typing things, you can speak. A speech to text function on this. And you might think, well, I'm never going to use it, so I'll just leave it be. But why is it there? You don't have to activate it. The only thing you can do in the preference is deactivate it. Why? Because it's already listening. That's why. That's why you don't have to activate it. Because it's already listening. It's not Alexa, but it's already listening. This device wants to spy on you. It wants to collect your data. All devices like this do. So you have to take the time. Just go through and render it blind, deaf, and dumb. Render it a device that serves you and no one else. I had to take the time to do that as much as I can. All that Amazon bloatware is collecting as much data as it can. That's why I'd like to get rid of it, in addition to not using it. But oh God, look at the length of this video. Good Lord. All right, so I'll wrap this up. That was your tech update. I now have a new baby. I have Big Blue, and I'm going to use it for everything that I don't use my actual typing MacBook for, and we'll see if it dethrones my iPads. I bet it will, because I don't have to worry about storage. Why would I use, if all things else are equal, these are the same apps that I use on my iPad. If all things else are equal, but with one I have to worry about running out of storage and the other I don't, why would I ever go back to the one that I have to worry about running out of storage? Why would I do that? I wouldn't. We shall see. But anyway, that's your update. So we have the tech update. We have one book, Savage Kiss from Roberto Saviano. We have Poetry Tuesday. I'm going to bail on Poetry Tuesday for today, but I am not bailing on the idea. We will have a poetry reading next Tuesday. And we have my William Shakespeare, the love of my life. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I will be back tomorrow. 40-minute videos enough for today. Thank you, BookTube.